Yeah, Bharati, you can start now.
Okay, sir. Shall I start, sir?
Yes, you can.
Artificial intelligence is a tool and not a threat. It's about replacing human decision making with more sophisticated technologies. Artificial intelligence is the science of making machines do things that would require intelligence if done by men. A very good evening to all. I feel privileged to extend my warm welcome to one and all present here for the day 4 of International Online Faculty Development Program on Perspectives of Artificial Intelligence Applications. On behalf of the Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering in St. Joseph's Institute of Technology, I am R. Bharati here to host today's session. On this pleasant evening, it gives us immense pleasure to cordially welcome our guest, Dr. Shaji Krishnan, as our honorable speaker. We would like to extend our gratitude for accepting our invitation and joining us to share your knowledge. Welcome, sir. Our respect and gratitude to our beloved chairman, Dr. B. Babu Manoharan, sir, our managing director, Mrs. B. Jessie Priya, ma'am, and director, Mr. B. Sashi Shekhar, sir, our respected principal, Dr. P. Ravichandran, sir, who has always been a great source of inspiration for all of us. It's our pleasure to welcome the HODs of ECE department, Dr. C. Nyanakausalya ma'am, staff and student affairs, and Dr. G. Rohini ma'am, lab affairs, and all other ECE staff members. Last but not the least, I welcome all the participants. Welcome you all. Now, I will be sharing a few words about our speaker. Dr. Shaji Krishnan, PhD, is a senior scientist at the Department of Risk Analysis for Products in Development at TNO in the Netherlands, with specialization in mathematical modeling with an experience around 30 years. He graduated in electrical and electronics engineering from University of Calicut, India, and has a PhD in semiconductors from University of Twente, the Netherlands. Beginning 2010, he shifted his interest from semiconductors to developing mathematical models for chemometrics and then towards physiological model developments, majorly for type 2 diabetes from a system biological perspective. Some of the systems dynamics models, molecular and high throughput data integration schemes, literature mining techniques have been applied to toxicogenomics, immune health, and exposure studies. His publications span various areas of mathematics, semiconductors, chemometrics, physiological models, and machine learning models. He advises PhD students and master students in varied modeling topics in life science. I consider it a great honor to have Dr. Shaji Krishnan sir with us today. Before getting into the session, I have few instructions to the participants. Kindly post your questions in the chat box, which would be answered at the end of the session. Also, the feedback link will be provided at the end of the session. We are glad and eager to begin the session, sir. I request you to start the session, sir.
All right. Okay, Bharati, thank you very much. And firstly, I need to say that it's a great pleasure to be here with the invitation coming from St. Joseph College in Madras. And I think it's a very interesting opportunity to talk about some of the things what I know. So it's not the whole of what we all know. It's just part of things what I know. So meaning that, okay, there are a lot of questions are still unanswered, maybe answered in the future. So what I would like to take two topics. One is about, okay, we know that we are going to talk about artificial intelligence. So people know about artificial intelligence. It can be applied in different fields. But the most interesting thing is to take one or two examples and see how this is very useful. And one topic which I would like to talk about is about nutrition. So when we talk about nutrition, we are thinking about having the right diet, based upon the kind of people we are, because everyone is different from each other. And there could be certain, we all carry some kind of diseases. So it should be something that is very manageable, easily captured, understood, and then applied. So that's about nutrition. So I call it personal nutrition. Personal nutrition is a very important topic. And that is where I will talk about. It is on this topic I'll be talking about on the first part. Then depending upon time, I think we can go to the second one, and that's all about all about diseases. So diseases are for diseases in one way it's a progressing. So some other diseases, some other diseases starts very minimally. You may not be able to see it because there could not be any much symptoms. But as it goes on, there is a point where we will be able to know that, okay, there could be a symptom, and then we start to look for the cure. But in many cases, the symptoms and whatever we could observe, that comes in a very late stage. So late stage means then there is not much cure available. So it is interesting to know, just before something can happen, which is observable, it is also possible to get to know whether is there any signature. So in this case, I am choosing to look into type 2 diabetic. So when I go to the topic, I'll introduce there are 2 types and actually 3 types. So I'll go to a type 2 diabetic, which is very common in India and many parts of the world. Billions of people are suffering from it. But then whenever we are talking about diabetic, it is at a stage where we see that this disease has already been, it's already there. So then there is no cure for diabetic. Until today, when people claim that they are giving medications, there is a way to solve diabetic, that is not true. Once you become diabetic, it can never be cured. So what is interesting here is to know if there are some signatures that could be seen, and if at all such signatures can be seen, you can take appropriate, I still say that it is not medicine. We don't need to take a medicine when we know the diabetic is coming. So before someone gets a diabetic, it is like even 14 years earlier, you can get to know that you will become diabetic. So you can do a lot of lifestyle changes and you can keep it in control. So you do not have to take medications. Most of the medications will be damaging to, in this case, when I say diabetic, it would be that there could be a damage in kidney. So until someone who has diabetic to the end, he's going to die because there's a kidney problem. All this is because of the medication. So how would we not get to know about such a signature exists? It started to be observable, not with the eye, not with the doctor. Humans cannot see it. So this is where artificial intelligence can be useful. So that is why I chose to to show in a progressing disease, is there a possibility to get an appropriate signature so that we could control it. Okay, so I will go to the first part. So what I want to say is, like, when I say that, okay, there could be, I know that there are a lot of participants here, and if you do not understand anything, that's fantastic, because nobody understands anything in terms of solutions. What I'm going to tell that we are in the process of building a solution. So if you say that you do not understand, actually you are on the safe side, because we are just trying to find solutions. So you could be a contributor in the future to find a solution. When you say you know everything, that's also fine, because then you could actually tell me if I miss something, then we can talk about it, and also can be useful for others to carry our knowledge and help them to understand it much better. So if you say, you are in between, you know everything and you know nothing, partially something, then you are on the right track, because you might know what is artificial intelligence, you know what is diabetic, or you know what you're talking about nutrition. So all this, if you are saying I know something, but then I would like to see how my knowledge or my thinking can help in building a solution. Okay, so there is a kind of introduction for these topics. So someone need to actually signal me on the time, because if I start talking, I would keep on talking for any number of hours. So I would like to see somewhere that somebody tells me that, okay, it is close to the time, so that I can actually narrow down. So I think we have 1 hour, and around when it is almost 50 minutes, I think you can start telling me that it is almost time. Okay. All right. So I go the first part. Let me see how I. Oh, okay, good. So are you able to see? I hope you guys can see what I'm showing here on the screen. All right, perfect.
Yes,
so the first one, sorry.
Yes, sir. We could see, sir.
Very good. So I think I'm going to talk about. There was the title was a little bit different, I think, but anyway, that the idea is very much the same. And this talk is, most of the slides, actually, I would say 100% of the slides is coming from, because a couple of years ago, Government of India asked me to give a talk in New Delhi. So you can, the most of this talk is 2 years old, and not much progress has happened. So still, most of the slides, you could follow it and also see where we are standing today. All right. So I'll go very slowly, because I know that the crowd, there are some people who know about artificial intelligence. There are people who understand nutrition. And in case some people are in between or somewhere there, I can take it very slowly. I will try to explain the terms I use. So in case you still don't understand, you can always contact me or look into Google, and we can talk about it. So that's all fantastic. So when we are talking about trying to find a good, so what is happening? This, yeah, I have to pull it down, otherwise the whole screen is okay. All right. So what I want to tell here is, like, okay, the whole idea today is try to take an appropriate diet that has a certain nutritional value, and depending upon what is our okay, what is how we are in terms of health, people start to look for apps or kind of what is it, like descriptions in a book, or some there's all kind of marketing about diet apps. These diet apps are coming in your phones, or maybe in somewhere, and we all try to see whether this is useful or should we follow it. So everyone, or the market, is actually flooded with this kind of apps. Is it doing a good job? Is it correct? Or is it useful? That's what we will see in the first few slides. I would say these are not apps, but they are traps. So you can see in the Time magazine, there could be a lot of interesting applications talking about weight loss apps. You see, the Time magazine, this was a cover. They said the weight loss trap. There's no such thing that is working, that, okay, you might reduce weight, but these are all not realistic. So, but why doesn't it work? So the question is also put there. You see, why your diet isn't working? So we need to understand it. Why? So the questions which we can look, try to answer. These are the ones that we can try to answer. Does these diet apps do any good? All right. Are they modeling nutrition in a good way? Because you need, when I talk about modeling, I'll come back to what does it mean by modeling, but is it doing a good job? And does this apps understand biology? Biology is not even understood by man. So how can you understand, how can you think of an app that can understand all the biology? So that's a little bit intriguing, or at least confusing, or whatever we can think of. Then comes AI. Can AI help in building up a personal nutrition diet? Now, there is AI, there is a lot of biological knowledge. Can we combine them? Is it all possible? Is it all feasible? Even though if it is feasible, what are the limitations as of today? These are the things we can try to answer. Okay? So the content. So how would I like to carry this talk? I will talk about, because when I say, okay, right now, I can talk about AI, that's not a good way of, I personally choose to talk from a very historical point of view, because everything came, even all the science, all the mathematics, everything just did not come in one day. It could be an effort or more than 2,000 years or whatever we are thinking of. So there is a slow progress. So it is important to talk about the history of this whole topic of optimizing nutrition. Then there was something that existed, and most of you are engineers, so there could be some students here. There used to be something called expert systems. So I'll talk about expert systems and what is it differing, why and how it differs from AI. You will see it. So expert systems were the kind of thing that were the earliest, some way of AI. And the machine can do something. So I'll talk about expert systems and how it is helping in optimizing nutrition. Then came AI. But as I said, AI is not enough. You need to bring science, the biology of humans. So we need to combine science together with AI. Then when we say big data means a lot of information that you cannot even have it in a PC, or it is quite large. So when we talk about information, that data that's called big data, we can analyze them. There are certain patterns which could be understood. The machine can understand it, not humans. But then how can we use the big data? A lot of data is out there, and how could we use in the nutrition? Then we can go and summarize and come to some conclusions. All right. Okay. Very, very interesting slide. Yeah. Although we are talking about a lot of nutritional optimizing nutrition, there existed in Ayurveda. So in Ayurveda, there's an Ayurvedic diet, which is a prescription for almost 3,000 years ago in India. So there are people, they have described each and every parts of what we need to do, what is the proportion of food, and what is good for us, and all kinds of descriptions are already available. So their descriptions, they have some dosha diet, vata, pitta, kapha, all talking about certain features that could be in control. So when things are not in control, you can bring it back to control. So these are the control elements that you can introduce in your food, or you can use a diet to control your body states. So Ayurveda includes or incorporates very natural ingredients. Today we have a lot of artificial things that can also not good for the body, because they are not used. The body is not used to anything that is foreign. That itself is the cause of disease. So very natural means that they are accommodate. You can accommodate. The body understands these ingredients, so it has a positive influence in the body. Now, a little bit of Ayurveda, I'm jumping to almost from 3,000 years ago to somewhere around 1960. Okay, so 1960. Okay, that's not very far, like only 80 years ago. There was no computer, but then they had an idea of how to have a good, interesting in terms of palatable. What is palatable? Palatable means, okay, it should have a good taste. So we like to have some food, and it should also be very tasty. So if it's all nutrients, and then if it is not very, not that you're not happy and have a good pleasure or have a good feeling to eat it, that is not very interesting. It should be tasty. You should like it. So that's a very important thing. Right? You can make all kinds of things, but it's not useful. You cannot eat it. That's not a thing to do. So it is always good to have a palatable diet, and palatable. It should be palatable. So then it is nutritionally balanced. So that means it has to be appropriate nutrition. And also, economics, the money is important. So you can have all kinds of things, and if it is costing very high, that's also not useful. So these three important things were considered, and if you ask for a nutritional diet or a personal diet, then you can. This is what exactly we do and in our home, but we don't think about nutrition. You make things what you like, and you also think of making foods that is feasible or in terms of money. But the nutrition part is not very, very carefully thought when we make things at home in most cases. So put this all together. Now I'm bringing a mathematical word that's called linear programming. So most of you might heard it, but for the people who haven't, it's a procedure, it's a method. What does it mean? It is like, suppose you would want to go to India, or no, you are in India, so I should be thinking of some other place. All right, let's go to some other place like Australia or somewhere. So we can choose to go to Australia in different ways. So you can go to Singapore and then go to Australia. You can directly fly to Australia. You can go to New Delhi, go to Japan, and then you can go to. So all this, we have our own wishes. So the wishes means that you are asking for a certain, you would want to you want to go to Australia, but there are certain conditions like, okay, I would like to go first to Madras, and then I go to Singapore. So you are putting some constraints. And again, I would like to go on a weekend. And okay, I want the front seat in the plane. So all these things are actually constraints. You are trying to bound your way of getting the solution. You're asking, give me that kind of solution. So in mathematics, it is called constraint. And we have an objective function. So we want to go to Australia. That's the objective function. So everything will have an objective function. There are constraints. So these are part of a mathematical, or that is part of a normally, there are a lot of questions in this form. So one way of solving this method, or one way of finding a solution is to have a linear programming method. So that is, I'm not going to give an elaboration, but there are very simple ways of calculating what is the solution that can take into consideration what is it will take into constraints. It will take into account the constraints you have placed. So it is a very graphical method. You can draw it in a pencil, and it's very, very easy to do that. But when the constraints become larger and larger, then you can program it in on a machine. Okay. So, but at the time 1960, there is not so much of machine, but people try to find a good solution for it. So that is that is the first method, I would say. And every time, if people are interested, I always put in the slides the paper, which is this would be the article or the paper which talks about this method. So, and the pictures also take from the picture from the paper. So the end of the slide, you can already see, at the bottom of the slide, you can already see where these are described. Okay. All right. Now I'm just continuing. Yeah. So what happened is, like, okay, there was not much computer. So there are some not very efficient. So if you want to do that, it was not very practical. And always there are human experts. So people who are like our moms. They are the expert. So the expert in making food. There are also men who can make a very interesting food. So humans always outperform this kind of computation. Yeah. So that's not very interesting. So I said the linear programming method, but there are also other methods. Like I don't go in a lot of elaboration. It's called evolutionary computation. They use it's called genetic algorithms. People know about it. So, and also something like they also try to understand. These are the ones. These kind of methods are used from natural way, how the nature is trying to solve the problem. You see here, genetic algorithms is very interesting because it looks into how the evolutionarily, we know the Darwin theory, that it will try to find the best solution and based upon what is the best way to survive. And the bacterial foraging means that the bacteria, or even it looks like ants, and the ants, I'm just making it bigger, ants work together, and they always, have you seen that they go in a very straight line to reach a food? So there is also a lot of intelligence coming from a group. It's not the solution coming from one ant. It's a group of ants that come to a solution. So the machines can also be programmed on solutions can be found using those methods. All right. Now, I'm just still continuing. So what happened is, like, later, after 60, I said it started in 60, and then later, in around 30 years later, there was a lot of progress in the computer. There used to be a processor. So people thought, and also I said, there are expert humans who are already able to outperform the computer methods. So what does it mean? Why did the people why did the humans outperform? Because they have some kind of knowledge in their brain. They understand that these things can be mixed together and they can be used for making a good diet. So the information is sitting in the brain, and there are a lot of experts. So they thought, why not collect that information? So collect the information and put it in a knowledge base. So the expert systems always consult the database in different ways and then try to answer the question. So on the left side, you see the two people are the doctor or the dietitian is trying to give a good diet advice. So he is using a machine, and the machine is asking a question based on what the needs are. It will go and look at the knowledge base and then recommend a certain solution. So that is what is being done. So that's an expert system. It contains knowledge and it is an expert. Okay. So the two ways, I'm just also bringing, because people here, it's also interesting to understand what kind of algorithms were used. So I'm just mixing up biology, computer science, algorithms, and mathematics. So because there are the diversity of this is what you must have. So I'm just bringing each of them and how these topics are influential in the whole whole of the different problems what we are talking about. So when we said these expert systems, there are very simple ways how this expert system will try to answer the question. Very simple method. It's called case-based reasoning. So reasoning means, okay, it is reasoning out. So the reasoning based on cases. That means when a person knows about something, an expert like mom, we said, okay, we can ask so many moms and so many experts and put them in the knowledge base. So it can be, let's say, 20,000 cases. So when a question is asked, you can go and I think the next, right, no. Okay, so the case-based, I'm just going back to the case-based. So the case-based says that, okay, we could be one example of the cases. So there are a lot of 20,000 cases. We might be a close or a similar. We belong to somebody who looks similar. If the similar person, if you can understand what is a diet or what is the kind of diet that was best and successful, you can, since you are very similar to that person, you can use the cases and based on the case, you can give a solution. That's a very easy thing. Sometimes there aren't enough cases, because when you start something, there is no case, right? Each time you build a new case, and so the knowledge base is a continuously evolving thing. But in the beginning, there is no rule. There is no cases. There are no cases. So we are talking about another method that's called rule-based reasoning. That means we have some knowledge. We are talking about certain rules, if-else rule. So in programming, we are in our daily, it's not about programming. It could also be like, okay, we are thinking, okay, we should go to a bazaar, and there is no buses, so I should need to take the train. So you make decisions based upon the situation, but that in your mind, there is a certain rule. And the rule, based on the rule, you can actually start to give reasoning. So that is also another way of doing it. So, and okay, so what is I said there is a knowledge base. The knowledge, what does the knowledge base contain? It contains a database about different kinds of food, because the choice of the diet or the nutritional value eventually ends up in food. So there should be knowledge about what nutritional value each of the food components have, because a food is made up of different components. You can make different food, different types of food. So each of them has a nutritional value. So those nutritional values, the database of the food is available. And then there is also case base of different menus. So you talk about how to make idli or something, then using the batter or so, these kind of things. Also about some nutritional risks, because if you take this one, then it can be a lot of fats and it can increase the cholesterol. Those kind of things are also available. That is the knowledge. So that is the kind of knowledge what these machines expert systems will use. Now, that's what I said. These diet-based systems, let's say the database contains certain knowledge, and this was happening until 2000. But then somebody thought maybe it is also good to add some health goals. So you see, there is an objective function coming into the query. We talked about, I would like to meet a certain goal. I have in 2 months' time that I should be able to lower my cholesterol, or in a 1 year. So you are setting up certain goals, which is like, that is the objective function. And the knowledge base contains certain combinations. And also, one interesting thing is that you can also bring your clinical data, because you said that you would want to have an improvement in your cholesterol. That meaning that you need to know the current measurements. What is the amount of cholesterol in your blood? What is the BMI? So what is your hip waist to hip ratio? These are important because that can keep track about whether what you are doing is actually right. So he keeps on checking, and the diets are modified in a way that it reaches and makes the objective function. So slowly you can see we are building intelligence into the machine. This is the kind of thing. So slowly intelligence is coming into the machine. We are putting the intelligence into an expert system, and then these kind of things need to be made better and better. So one thing, okay, this is an example how the outcome will be. So I'm not going details. It's like, okay, this kind of lunch you eat, this kind of dinner you choose to eat. So there are some recommendations. This is how a typical outcome that might come. Now, remember, I talked about the methods used. I talked about case-based reasoning, rule-based reasoning. So in case-based reasoning, we have a lot of cases. In rule-based reasoning, there are certain rules in which you can make a choice. Now, when I'm looking at the question we are trying to answer, it is about personal dietary advice. So it is like a personal nutrition is the topic. So the idea of the people is to give a personal, recommendation. If you look at the case-based reasoning, it's okay. There are, let's say, 20,000 cases. We can look for someone who is similar. But similar means what? Similar at what level? So whether his BMI and my BMI is similar, okay, that's okay. There could be something else which I could be like, okay, so there is some other physiological parameter or a clinical measurement that might be similar, but there is a very high level of abstraction. There are a lot of interesting things that still is not very much. I'm just looking at the time, 2 o'clock. All right. So are we going in a good time? Are we? So can someone answer?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's 5:37, sir.
Is it going faster or slower, or what do
No,
you
sir.
think?
Correct pace only, sir.
The timing is good, right?
Yes, sir.
Very good. So just give me warning, because I have to look into my phone to see whether the time is good. Okay. So just give me a signal.
Sure, sir.
Okay. So, but the whole idea is everybody should understand. So that's why I'm going at different, I'm going in detail in some places and a little bit more with a lot of examples. Okay. So when you say that, okay, these you could find similarity, but the similarity is at a different, it could be at a very high level abstraction. So if our abstraction is quite high, the real similarity, we can find very similar person who looks like me. That's okay. But does it mean that, okay, the internal biological mechanisms are similar? That may not be the case. So there is, when we talk about a personal dietary advice, we will get very close, but may not be very true. So we want to improve that. So that is one not very good, suitable for personal advice. Now we are talking about rules. So rules are also, it's also a kind of, it is also built with a very high level of abstraction based on, let's say, age. Somebody who is like my age, another person, if is less than this age, less than, something can be done. It's quite okay. But as you go deeper into biology or try to understand, they are also, you will have misclassifications, and that is not also, cannot bring a very good solution. So both has a limitation. It will do a job, but it's not that great. Okay. All right. So that's are the limitations of expert systems. So now we will think about AI. Yeah. So we said, okay, we are able to use the knowledge in an expert system, but then we can also see how this expert system slowly evolved together with the what is it, like how an artificial knowledge about how can we have knowledge that is artificial. Yeah, so that's the whole idea. So the point is also, I said AI can do a lot of job. They are very good for, like I don't know, some good things, like try to find a good book. So that's quite easy. Yeah, find a pattern. That's I find a car. There's a cars, trucks, and so on. And AI is good in finding out whether there is a car, whether there is a truck or a bus, or it is a dog, or that's okay. At that level, it is very useful. But as you go deeper and deeper, they perhaps are not very good. And there are a lot of examples where I could tell that they are not doing a good job. Why? Because this AI doesn't understand the domain. It is only seeing numbers. These numbers are just numbers 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And so what does the AI doesn't understand? What are we talking? It's like a brain. Brain can understand the context, but then a machine is only reading numbers, and then he's just spitting out some numbers based on some pattern. So the AI has a lot of limitations. But how can we improve it? We can tell the AI that, okay, hey, you are looking numbers, but they are belonging to biology. So we can put knowledge based on science, combine it with AI, and look together how we can find a better solution. So that is what I call the marriage of science and AI. Okay. Now I'll take some very interesting observations. These observations are done by some of our colleagues, and this particular one is from Israel and other interesting institutions. This is a very important slide. That is why we cannot make an app, or we cannot use things what we think is all good. Okay, what is this slide? Suppose I'm talking about two people in the same house, like our father or mother, or you and your sister, or you and your wife. So, or even you and your child. Okay, both of us starts taking a food. Let's say in the morning, yeah, banana. Then after some time you eat some I don't know, some bread or something, a bun or something. Yeah? We both of us take exactly the same food, and on the y-axis, if I move my mouse, are you able to see? I'm just trying to, if I move my mouse.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, very good. So the x-axis talks about this, okay, having to take banana at some point. This is time. The x-axis is time, and there you eat banana, and then you eat something, right? This one, it is more calories, or more, you can produce more glucose. So in y-axis, we are talking about how much glucose is extracted or can be measured in the blood. So these are example, you and your child, okay, or your partner. So someone takes banana, someone also takes a banana. You see, the glucose is not rising in this person. This is one person, another person. Yeah. For this person, the glucose is rising immediately, and it will go down. But for some other food, yeah, this person, or it's me in this case, it rises high, but not so much here. Even though you take the same food, there is a high variability in the glucose response. Glucose response is very important. It tells about how much of your energy can be used in your metabolism. If the glucose response is not good, it says that metabolically these two people are different. Okay, so then what we could say is, like, there is a lot of biological differences among us. So if you make if you try to understand what is happening, there is this fundamental problem here. So that is difficult to understand how these two people are different. Another one, and perhaps most of you know it, but do you know that in your gut there is enormous bacteria? And how much? It is 10 times of the number of cells in your body. So number of cells in your body is around 10 to the power of 12, around, estimate. Multiply by 10 times, 10 to the power of 13. 10 to the power of 13 microbiome is sitting in your gut. They have co-evolved with us. They are friendly bacteria. There are bad bacteria, but I'm talking about the friendly bacteria. Without the bacteria, we do not exist. So next time you see a bacteria, don't be very friendly. Yeah? Without him, without the bacteria in your gut, you don't survive. He helps in a lot of interesting things. What does it mean? It is not the same type of bacteria that we share among people. So your bacterial content in the gut is different from what I have. That meaning this bacteria is the one who will digest the food. He will break down, not digest food, it will break down because he produces enzymes and he breaks down the food. So the way how the food is handled itself is different. There is somebody sitting in your body, not you, who will decide how to break the food inside the gut. So that's also we do not understand. So that meaning we are talking about 10 raised to 13 types of amount of information in our gut, which need to be considered when we talk about diet. Is a very important, and these two slides come from as a very high impact and a very important result, or at least observation. Now, so I talked about why we have to be very careful when designing food, because we are completely biologically different, each and every one in the food processing compartment. Okay, that's one. Now, so that is science. We have to understand how it is different. Okay. Next one is we talked about AI, but I just give a very small introduction about AI just to get to have sufficient knowledge. AI is something that don't think that it's like a monstrous thing, or it's a very, very simple thing. It is something that people thought about it 2,000 years ago, starting from Aristotle. So that is the one that is documented starts from Aristotle. Even my people might have even thought about it. So there is something, we talked about expert systems. There is something in mathematics called first order logic. First order logic, the name looks complicated, is a very simple thing. First order logic means that you can use logic. Logic is 1, 0, yes, no, these are logic. And so that's actually not logic. These are the elements of a logic. But using this, like one is it's existing, not existing, using that there is a certain rules you can build. And first order logic is used to infer some things. Like human beings can infer, we can use mathematics to infer something. An example, Aristotle gave this example, and that is what is called deductive reasoning or inference. So he said, you might have read this in the books, all men are mortal. Okay, they will die. Socrates is a man. What does it mean? All men will die. If Socrates is a man, he will also die, right? So the third statement can be deduced from the first two. So that is an example of a first order logic. This is a very key component in an expert system. Expert systems can use first order logic to make inferences. So inferences is also very much the brain can do. We are inferring. Every time we are coming to some conclusion is based on inference. Some other parts are inference together with knowledge. Knowledge is the statements. Based on few statements, you can make higher order statements. So that is inference. So that happened sometimes. So I'm talking about 2000 years ago, there was thinking, and those ideas are still used in many AI languages. One is a Prolog, that's a kind of thing. It's a language, you can program using Prolog. And sometimes also in around 1970, yeah, you may not believe, there people started to think about the brain, the whole brain, the thought, and why the brain can, people want to understand the brain. So it was happening for even the time of Aristotle. Actually, they wanted to understand, they did not even know there's a brain, such a thing existed in our body. The brain and everything was there, but they did not know how we are able to think. So, but they finally understood that the brain is somewhere sitting on your head, and the brain is something that is what you call neuron, right? Because neurons are interconnected, and they can be interconnected in a way that it can do an inference, for example. So they thought, why can't we also create some neurons in the computer and connect it together? And that is what is called as a artificial neural network. So this meaning that the brain is learning. It has no knowledge when you're born. Like after seeing a lot of things, every day it is learning. That is information. So given information, they thought maybe it is a good idea to make the program, create a computer, and which can model a neuron, and then you can start using it. That idea of neural network happened in 1970. They thought maybe we can use a neural network and start to build an artificial neural network, and that can be used for intelligence. Okay, very good. So that is a good idea. But what happened? It did not make any useful. Okay, they could do, like I said, perhaps I did this neural network in 1986. And sorry, 1988 or 88, 9, I'm not sure. So at the time there was neural network, but it cannot do anything more than all the kind of projects or something we try to understand is like, okay, identify a character. Well, it can, if you write what is it? If you write handwriting, recognize a handwriting. Somebody writes an A, recognize that is A. For all this kind of a pattern learning, trying to understand the pattern. If there are some errors in the way I write A, because every time I write A, it can be slightly different. So even though you are very close to writing A, it can understand A. These kind of things are very good with a neural network, but it was not very successful. So neural networks did, although it was made in 1970, I don't know, it was like maybe it did not succeed. People forgot about it. This thing is useless, they thought. Why? Is also because in finding out, that's why I draw this picture. I said, okay, it is learning. So you have to give examples. If I say give an handwriting here, I tell this is A. Give another handwriting, another writing on with a hand, you also tell it is A. So this machine is learning by computing some, we call weight, some weightage. So somehow we'll make it learn. But this learning was very difficult in some applications. It was a very difficult mathematical problem to find out what is the best solution. So this is the curve. There are a lot of errors. So there is a certain weight in which the error is very low. But try to find this weight was not an easy job in this kind of network. Then in 2000, somebody came. These are the top 3 people who got the Turing Award this year. That person, he invented a very simple algorithm that can very quickly find out what is the weight. So that made a very big boost to neural network. So the neural network started to come again very, very fast into applications, because that algorithm is called back propagating algorithm. Back propagation, one of the key invention in artificial intelligence. The person he got the Turing Award. Turing was one of the very great, you can say a Nobel Prize in computation. He devised it. His name he's all in America, but he's not really American. I forgot the names. I don't. Liu Khan or something. Yeah, I know his name. Okay. But the thing is, like, that made a very important. It was a revolution, that algorithm. And then they started to build neural networks, just connections. These are one neuron. They make the model neuron. And then this is called a layer. These are layers. Okay. So this layer, you can increase the number of layers. You can make the interconnections very complicated, all kinds of connections. The more the connections are, this simple neural network, you heard about what is called deep learning. There is nothing but the increase in the number of layers and also how they are connected, what functions, because this is when I say one connection to the other, it's called a transfer function. So what is transfer? Input multiplied by something, then you get the output. So the transfer can be a different set of functions. So all the deep neural network doesn't mean anything very complex. It's still a neural network. Lot of layers. This is a layer, hidden layers, and different types of functions. Okay, I'm just checking time. Okay. So we are still, it's in 2:25 for me. So it still have half an hour, I think, or not. How many minutes more, please? Please tell me.
Sir, it's actually here 5:55, sir. Certain
Only 5 minutes.
10 to 15 minutes you can take.
Right.
Sir. 10 minutes.
So, yeah. Okay, good. Just to know. Huh? So,
Okay, sir.
right. So we know that this AI is important. We also understand previously that we have to understand the biology. So the biology plus the power of data crunching, both can be now used together in a system like deep learning or the other neural network kind of architecture. The machine will learn, and we can use the cases we study. We talked about cases, right? So the cases, we talked about case-based reasoning, is another way. You are teaching the machine to take a decision based on what you have seen. That is example. So it's nothing. So you look at the case-based reasoning. It reasoned, but we don't have to write any rules. That is the rule is created by the machine. That is the most interesting. The previous case, the rule-based thing, because we should understand the rules. In this complex biology, we don't understand the rule. We don't even understand what is happening, let's say. We don't have to bother about understanding it. So the AI, if someone is these days, I always try to give this message in people who want to learn AI. Anybody who is thinking that AI is the most important thing that they should start learning in the graduation, that is not a good idea. AI is for the dumbest person in this world. Dumb. Fool. Yeah? Why? What are you doing? You are creating some interconnections, giving some examples, and you do not want to understand what is the mechanism. This is the most ridiculous thing somebody would do, to my opinion. We don't want to, so we are becoming more lazy and even do not want to understand how the nature is working. So this, for a person who is curious about learning nature, learning to understand AI is, it's a very strong opinion, or I tell all the people, we are trying to become fools. Yeah. If I hear that people want to become data scientists, people go and look for data, learning, deep learning courses. Please don't do that. Become creative. And I would not recommend, because if you go and ask, let's say we are able to talk to some greatest scientific people in the world from the past. Let's say we'll just go and believe, let's say we are able to talk to Newton. He will be crazy when he says we use examples and put into a machine, and then we don't want to understand the rules. If we don't understand the rules, we cannot predict. Predict in sense, we do not understand the mechanism. This is the foolish thing what we're doing. So I'm not talking that we are fools or something. So, but okay, what to do? We like to become fools, so we will use AI. Okay, so that meaning that the whole biology is not understood, so we give it up, and then we make another machine which we think is can do without any child can do it. Yeah. So take some lot of data, do some experiments, and then put some AI, and then we get the beautiful diet. That is what is AI. So looks very, what is that? Very demotivating, right? But that is only since we cannot understand, we have to go and do some stupid things. Yeah. By some intelligent things. We created some intelligence, we think that is intelligence and AI, and then we put all the information from biology, and then we rotate that, we crank it, and it produces some result, and we think that is great. Yeah. All right. So that is what we are doing now. That is an application of AI in diet, is without understanding anything, we are putting it into a machine. Okay, but let's do that. So we take the information from the microbiome. I said microbiome is very important. We also understand about the gene. Every gene, we know how it functions. Not everything, some understanding. We also collect some personal features about the person. And then we put it all together. We can also look at his lifestyle, what he's doing, put it in a machine, and then we push a button, and then the machine learns everything, and that is all. Very easy, very easy. Yeah. This is what is being done today. This is science and AI. But why is it important? What I said is that a lot of data is available, and we cannot handle, we cannot understand the data. So I'm talking about gigabytes and terabyte information, and how every gene is working. In humans, we are talking about 24,000 genes, approximately. 22,000 to 24,000 gene. And this gene, every functions can be coded. When put together, they will work in some form. Like 22,000 entities, you can have 22,000 ways of combination. The machine can understand all this because he can do all the dumb job. And then we can look at every diet, what can happen, put the genetic information, put the metabolic profile into a machine, crank it, and that is what the big data analytics. And there is where we believe that the precision nutrition, what does that mean? Precision medicine. Like precision medicine is trying to find out a very, it hits the target, very specific to that person. Yeah? Similarly, precision nutrition means an diet that is very personally and with high precision is created, that can manage, because somebody has a disease, or most of us has some kind of problem, and trying to accommodate the disease into your system, and then build a nutrition, and in a way that these chronic diseases is actually not progressing, is coming down. So that is what the machine can do by combining all this data. We talked about a very clever method of optimization, and we talked about deep learning. All this can put together, and it is in a big box, crank the machine, and then it will produce a solution. Yeah, that is what I would say. Now, word of caution. People have understood how these things work, and they have put together a lot of data. They're cranking the machine, and they are always telling that you haven't, that, okay, there is a solution. Okay. But the solution is that they're trying already, before the child is born, they're writing, always talking about the child. Okay. So there are a lot of applications which talk about personalized nutrition based on the genotype. Genotype means, okay, different, the variability in the gene. Everybody is living different. So a lot of companies are already selling it. That is not, it is not good enough. They are working on it. But don't buy something, because biology is still in the path of understanding. We are in the path of understanding biology. So how can these guys write down this? Is still not bad. It is not yet good. So that is why we are talking about a lot of diets and machines and this. It will come, but it will take, the best ones will come later. So we are just the beginning. It's like, okay, we understood, like Edison found the bulb. We are in a state that, okay, he has a bulb. But to make the perfect bulb, even today, they are working on making the perfect bulb. What is a perfect bulb? The bulb that does not consume any other energy other than producing light. Yeah, why should a bulb produce heat? It is losing energy. So no minimal energy for a purpose is the goal. So we have to come to that stage. I'm not going to go into these slides because this is what we do. If I talk about it, it can take a lot of time. So what I will just continue. So we are working on it. So we are working on it, and we are quite successfully on the path. And we talk about personalized nutrition. What does this nutrition do? In our case, it is very personal, of course. What is different from other people? What we do is like we intervene. That means people in engineering can recognize what is called a finite impulse response. If you remember it, it's nothing. The word looks interesting. It means if I would want to understand about a property, I could give him a signal, an impulse signal. What is impulse signal? It is just a spike. It's called a Dirac signal. And then you can go and look at the response. The response is actually the property. From the response, you can tell what is the property of the system. Very similarly, we try to understand the body by giving him an impulse. So we cannot give him a shock. That is not the idea. The idea is to give him a high glucose, it's called OGTT, oral glucose tests. Very high amount of glucose is given, and then we understand how the body responds. That can give the property of the body. So there are like OGTT, as it's called. I think there's a lot of OGTT tests in India, but the information is not the data. What is the response data is not appropriately used. There's a lot of information coming from the response signal. So we can also do fat test. Very heavy, quite sizable amount of fat is given to the body, or somebody is asked to eat a very high fat diet. So we are understanding how the carbohydrates is metabolized, how the fat is metabolized, how a protein is metabolized. These are called the macronutrients. These ones can tell, the response signal will tell you how your body is responding to. It can give a signature of the metabolism. We use that information together with AI, and that is what is very specific. That is what we do additional to the, what is different in what we do? We use intervention. And that is what we incorporate into our into the understanding about a person. And the signature is different for each people. And that can help us to construct a better diet. Yeah. And of course, all the AI information on all these things are behind it. So I'm going to make some of the major conclusion. Okay. AI can certainly assist in increasing our current knowledge of science and all the information, put it together. We could understand and make a healthy advice in diet. So we are combining AI plus science, plus specifically we are talking about some intervention tests. And we talked about precision medicine. Now to actually do all this computation takes enormous computing power. But then the precision medicine, the aim is to bring it on a chip. That means your phone should be able to handle this massive crunching operation. Certainly the phone cannot do that. So it will communicate to appropriate servers, like your Siri application is also able to answer your questions. Is continuously communicating to the server that is appropriately fed with a lot of data, a lot of machine learning algorithms are running behind. So similarly, we will rely upon communicating to some huge computing machines. There are several ways of doing it, but there are also computations. There are chips that are coming with AI neural network programmed into the machine, hardwired. That means hardware where the neural network is built in. And so their local computations can already be performed. And together, that is how we could make personal. This is at least the aim, or at least the path the community, scientific community is thinking. And there's a lot of interesting progress, and we are also working on it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is that I don't think that we'll be able to go to the second presentation, but this itself possibly had enlightened you with some idea how AI is used. But AI can be successful only if you incorporate the domain knowledge. So that is the new trend, meaning that, okay, last 2 to 3 years, information AI methods are integrated together with science, and that is very important. So that means biologists, knowledge, and mathematics is working together. So previously the biologists are their own. Now mathematicians and biologists are working together, and it is very important. In the past, it was physics that used a lot of mathematics. Today, mathematics is being very intensively used in biology. And somehow, because I had, I don't have biological knowledge, but biology is most easiest to learn, but the most complicated to understand. Nobody can claim that he can give you a solution in biology. That person does not exist. In maybe, I don't know, in few years or in 2 decades, or we can get to some understanding. Maybe we will give it up, because in some of the experiments I do and try to understand, it is contradicting to what our thinking itself. So I am not sure whether we will understand biology. But still, if we are successful to quite good stage, I think that is a very big event, what humans can make. So, but the mathematics, it can be understood only with mathematics. So mathematics is a very powerful tool that is being used today in biology. And you can take my word. The next, as you can see, the previous Nobel laureates, they are given Nobel Prize because they, not only in physiology or in medicine, physics, chemistry, in those sciences, the people who have contributed, the people in physics have contributed to understanding of biology. The chemists have done something that can help in understanding biology. These are the people who get Nobel Prize in the last few years. For the next 20 years, I think next 10 years for sure, the Nobel Prizes will go to people who did mathematics and biology. And I think that is with a high certainty. Yeah. I think I have to stop here. I said, okay, if I given time, we could talk a lot of things. So what I think is that personally, okay, we got a good opportunity because St. Joseph's College helped us to put us together. But this should be a good beginning. I have time. For me, time is infinite, meaning that I think time is something that is, we have only 24 hours, but I believe that we have infinite time. That means it depends upon what we are interested and what we are ready to talk. So for me, I am open to anybody, whether they are a child of 10 years old or someone who is older, 80 years old. I am available to talk about it. And together, I think we can make a great contribution to humanity, at least little bit from our pocket. Okay. Thank you very much. And if you have questions, I know I have taken a little bit of overtime, but I hope this is enlightening and good to the future.
Yes, sir.
All right. Can you tell, is it how much, 1 hour? How much is it now? 1 hour, 10 minutes? Or can you?
Yeah, yes, sir. 1 hour, 10 minutes. That's
So
all.
is the time good now? So
Yes,
okay,
sir.
right? Yeah, we are
Yes,
okay,
sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Bharat,
Thank you, sir, for sharing your knowledge and experience. Let me move on to the question and answer session, sir.
Yes, please.
Our first question is, in AI, what do you mean by case-based reasoning?
But before I answer the question, can I now take off the share? Or the screen is still being shared?
no, sir, not needed, sir. Not
No,
needed.
because if some questions I can go to the particular slide and use that slide to give
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, sir. Yeah, sir.
So I understand the question you're asking. What is a case-based reasoning? Is that correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
All right. So what do you mean by case? Case means an example, right? So examples are good. Why? Because if you want to find an answer, we can go and look where if there is a similar question being answered in the past, right? So the idea is if a new question is coming, we go and look up into a kind of dictionary. This dictionary can closely help us to find a similar question to the question we have. So if we, in the case-based dictionary, solutions are already given. So the dictionary contains a question and an answer. So every time a question is asked, we go and look who is the closest question. What is the closest question that can answer the new question? Yeah. So what is so that can help in trying to reason out a good answer. Is it okay?
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Our second question, how do you identify blood glucose level using AI?
Actually, that was my second slide, or is a second presentation, but I can quickly tell it. Yeah.
Oh, yes, sir.
Right. So you can always measure the blood glucose. Yeah. Like, okay, how much glucose is in the blood? It's just like finding a molecule. So there are very interesting ways of doing it. Now, why do we want to measure glucose? Is to see if that is too much. If too much glucose is there in the blood or in the body, it is very toxic. Glucose is a very important molecule. Every organism, living organism, makes or consumes glucose to the end. He needs glucose. The plant, human beings, bacteria, everybody needs glucose. So everybody is trying to make glucose. But the glucose, if it is staying too much in the body, he is toxic. So the body has a mechanism to balance the glucose. So we know that there is a certain amount of level in which the glucose has to be maintained. Either if when we eat, the glucose will rise. So we had an example to show the glucose was rising. So anything above what we is needed, that the glucose has the body has a mechanism to store the glucose in the cells. He will keep it, not in the glucose form, another molecule. And when we do not eat, let's say we take a dinner at 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock, in 4 hours, everything is digested, but we are sleeping until the next day morning. There is a requirement of glucose. 50% of the glucose is consumed by the brain. The brain is ideally sitting, but is continuously is consuming glucose. So the brain needs glucose. So when we take food at 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock, the glucose is good enough. He stores it, what is more. And then when it does not get glucose, he will convert the molecule that was stored into glucose. And that is what we are consuming when we do not eat food. So the measurements can be done to check whether your glucose is within this limit. Anybody going up and the body cannot bring it back, that person is suffering from diabetic. Yeah. I know I answered more than what you asked, And that would have been the next presentation, but any other time we could discuss that. And your question also asked, how do we use AI to measure glucose? You don't need AI to measure glucose. There was no AI in the past. They understand glucose. But what is interesting is to know how does your glucose will behave. Today you can measure the glucose. Yesterday how the glucose was. 5 years ago how it was. You would want to know what would be the glucose in 5 years' time. That depends upon the biology of your body. So you can bring AI together with the body characteristics, and then you can predict what will be the glucose after 5 years. That is a very important question that is being people are trying to answer the question. 30 years have crossed. We are still trying to solve the problem. So this problem is, okay, you can tell approximately, but you cannot predict the glucose. And I would have shown the slide. We are the first ones who have predicted with high precision. So this publication will come, and I use machine learning. I personally did this problem. 85 to 120 papers are available who try to solve the problem, but we are claiming that, okay, we are able to solve it with AI. And this will come in as a high impact publication soon. But I could have given you in the other slide how I did it, or we did it. I don't want to lie. We did it. So meaning that your question is very interesting and is a very important question, actually. Yeah. Okay. Is it good? The answer? Are you comfortable? Did you understand?
Yes, sir. Our next question. For building a neural network, do we need mathematical logic?
Neural network, as I told you, is a interconnection of certain nodes. Yeah, node. The node, what does one node refer to? The node refers to a neuron in the brain. Neurons are just one entity, but neurons are communicating to different neurons. So one neuron is connected to another neuron, and they communicate only if it is a certain above a certain value. So it's called the threshold. And it's also called the firing. The neuron fires. Then the brain, when you are thinking, or when you are now asking and listening to my answers, and when I'm giving the answers, certain part of the neurons are talking to each other. So in the computer, we built a model of a neuron, which will do similar functions as what the brain will do. It's not very complicated. We build a neuron in a very simple fashion. Like, okay, as I said, when an input is coming, he will calculate what need to be sent to the other neurons. So the calculation is based upon a transfer function, and this transfer function can be different, and based on a certain weight, the inputs together can tell if it needs to communicate to other neuron. That meaning, if the signals are low, it will not communicate to the next neuron in the computer. So you can define the rules in which how these things are communicating, and the neural network is based upon such a rule. So the rules are based upon how the two neurons are communicating. But the difference is we are talking about 1 billion neurons. 1 billion neurons is in the brain. I don't know how many neurons, but in the computer, we are able to make maybe 1/10 of a neuron, or not even 1/10, very, very little. So it does a work how the brain is operating. At least that is the idea. We think that the brain is working in that form. It seems to be good. So that model is chosen to create a neural network which mimics a brain. That is why it is called an artificial neural network. Yeah? Was it okay, the answer?
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. And moving on to next question. How to categorize the high fat and high sugar diet? Yeah.
So high fat and high sugar, right? How to categorize? You see, sugar is like a chain of, we call it carbohydrates, because a chain of carbons. So then you will know that it is one of the highest, very quickly it is metabolized by the body. You get energy very fast. So that's why when we say, when we are tired, drink 1 glass of glucose. What is it? That in the box. you have a glucose powder, right? Or you drink 1 glass of sugar, sugars, or any drink that contains high sugar. So sugar is easily metabolized, and the energy that the body can get is very fast. And by the categorization is based on it. When you talk about categorization, you can categorize on different things. So I categorize now based on the energy. So sugar can produce a lot of energy. It is a chain. It's a chain in which this molecule is being made. Now, lipids mean fat. So fat is high energy content, but it will be metabolized very slowly. So the body will do certain, if you want more energy, the fat is also stored in our body as something what we call triglyceride. So you will be able to synthesize in the body. See, everything in the body, when it gets more energy, he will store it in different forms. So glucose is stored in one way. The fat is stored in another way. Even the sugar even the sugar can be converted into triglycerides. The point is that these are different energy molecules. The body is keeping it in a treasure, or in a some box. When it needs energy, first he will go and take the sugar. Second, he will go and take the lipids. So the third one is protein. The protein is the one that the body will choose to use at a very last stage. So if you start to people start dieting. When we start dieting, the sugar is all converted. Very quickly, the sugar is gone. Next one, it will start to, all the fats that are stored, all that's why we are burning fat. That means that those energy is now retrieved. So the fat is being broken down. There are certain pathways. There's one of them is called citric cycle pathway. It is a reverse operation in which you make it into certain, it's called a glycerol. It breaks down into glycerol and fatty acids, and they can reconvert into sugar. So that they become sugar again. So these are characterized based on how the molecule, the body is going to store it in a box. So sugar is easily metabolized, fat is a little bit slower, but they are also ending up in becoming glucose. Okay. Was it a fair answer? Because categorization, I did it because we are talking biology, so that I thought I categorized better on how the energy, how the body uses, the body uses it as the energy source. Yeah, but we can do a lot of categorization, physical characterization. Now I did a biological categorization on how in terms of metabolism.
Yes,
Was
sir.
okay?
Yes, sir. It's fine.
Yeah.
Next one. Which algorithm is suitable in neural network?
As you have seen, the neural network, what is it doing? It is learning, right? It is learning based on given examples. So we said, if I have 10,000 examples, I can tell the neural network, if this is let us go back to the example of the letter, handwriting. I write A, and tell the machine, yes, if you see this, then this is A. You slightly change it, then also I'm telling it is A. So you can write 100 different A, and then every time to the machine you say, this is A. So what is happening is that, okay, now this 10,000 examples are given to the machine, and I said, we have to find the appropriate weight. Right? You saw the curve. I showed it somewhere here, I think. Yeah, I don't know, where was it? Yeah. Yeah, you see, this is the curve. If I'm just make it bigger. So we are giving a handwriting here, and we are telling this is A. Another little bit different way of writing A, and we say A. If you write B, you say no, that is not. So it is like very close to A, we say A. So we give a letter A, 1. Okay. So 1,000 examples of little bit of different way of writing, we always say this A. And when I write A can, if a little bit weird A, then we say that is not A. He don't understand. Now, what does it mean? The error means something written here and something written here on the right side. You can subtract. right? This is the perfect A. Little bit of a different A, you can subtract this A and you will get a difference. The idea is, what is the best weight that can help you identify A and something written A and this A. And this is this curve. So we need to write an algorithm which will minimize this error. You can use any algorithm. The simplest algorithm is called, let's say, deepest descent. I'm just picking one. Although in neural network, it is not deepest descent. Okay, it is deepest descent somewhere, but they use back propagation. I said, you can read it in the textbook. But I'll take a simple example. Deepest descent means, think of a hill. The idea is to find out. Suppose you want to go to the top of the hill. What would you do? Just like think. See, algorithms are very, very interesting, yeah, because it is just like what we do, but then you put it in a computer form. The mathematics is actually very simple. Because it is just like what, very natural. So how do you go to climb a hill? We walk in a direction that is always going up. Yeah, looks very crazy. You see, how do we reach a hill, top of the hill? We will take a direction. Suppose you don't know where the let's say Everest. We don't know. We cannot see the top of the Everest. But we choose a direction every time the altitude should increase. Every time the altitude is increasing, then we can, it's very logical that we are going up. Now, how to do it in mathematics? That's very simple. What is the height? Moving up means we are changing the tangent, the gradient. We are talking about a tan theta. So we are talking about so the algorithm at every step chooses the next location where the gradient is higher than the previous one. So that is deepest. I said deepest descent. What it doesn't mean. I said descent means coming down, right? But coming down and going up in mathematics is very simple. One by coming down is actually one by going up. Meaning, if I say 5, the number 1 by 5 means you are coming closer to 0, right? So 5, 6, 7, 8, 100,000, it is going up. But 1 by 5, 1 by 6, 1 by 7, 1 by 8, and 1 by 100, you are coming down. So when I said the name is deepest descent, you take these steps, the gradient in the reciprocal. The reciprocal of going up is coming down, right? So that is a simple algorithm, and most of the algorithms use, for example, deepest descent. So even the back propagation algorithms will do an deepest descent kind of solution to find the best weight that can solve the problem. Was it too complicated? It was very simple, right? Or
Yes.
Simple, or was it difficult to understand? I gave a simple example of going a hill.
It's very simple. It's simple.
Right. Okay. Next one, if you have.
Yes, sir. Our final question is: any link between level of insulin or beta cells in pancreas and gut bacteria?
Can you please repeat? There was something I did not understand. The communication, there was a break. Can you please repeat the question? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Any link between level of insulin or beta cells in pancreas and gut bacteria?
Again, there was some. Can you tell it quite slowly, because I don't understand it. I understand insulin, I understand bacteria, but what is the question?
Any link between bacteria? Any
link between level of insulin or beta cells in pancreas?
Yeah. Very good question. We talked about microbiome as a bacteria in the cell. Sorry, in the gut. The insulin, and so insulin is something for the people, for the rest of the people. We talked about glucose. We said that, okay, the glucose is very important to be maintained under a certain level. Glucose needs to be absorbed into the body. The body cannot absorb glucose very directly. He needs a helper. So the helper is insulin. insulin helps one to absorb the glucose into the muscle or any other cells. So if you are talking about diabetic 2, type 2, that meaning that you are the contribution of creating insulin is there, but the absorption power is getting lost. That means it's called insulin resistance. If the body cannot, the cell cannot use the insulin, the glucose will not be used. The glucose cannot be absorbed. So in type 2 diabetic, we slowly become type 2 diabetic because the cells are not able to has a resistance towards insulin. Type 1 diabetic means that the pancreas is broken. That means due to autoimmunity. Autoimmunity means that the body immune system will kill its own cells. He cannot identify that is his own cell. So in type 1 diabetic, which occurs mainly in children, if you have autoimmune disease, you are you can end up, your pancreas will be not able to produce insulin, and then you end up also in diabetic, which means that. Now the question is whether there is a relation between the microbiome and the insulin. If you are talking about insulin is something that is created by the pancreatic cells, the beta cells. So there are lot of, the bacteria sitting in the gut is able to produce enzymes for processing or breaking down the food. There are metabolites that will be now in the blood. And there are a lot of mechanisms that are either going through the blood or through the nerve cells. And it's called one is a hormonal signal, one is a nervous signal, the nervous system. These two has a lot of interacting effects in the brain. So there is a mechanism in which will tell you how much, when you are hungry, there is a signal coming from the brain, and there is a signal coming from the gut, and this is called the leptin-ghrelin cycle. So there's a ghrelin is a molecule, leptin is on. It is a balance that will tell you that you need to take food. When you need to take food, the insulin should be ready. Otherwise, if you don't have appropriate insulin, the body cannot synthesize the glucose. So these are a kind of feedback system. This feedback system can be intervened by the amount of the molecules that are generated by this bacteria. So there is some knowledge in which this cycle can be interfered. So the interfering of the microbiome has an effect on the whole physiology of what we are, and that meaning in some or other way there is an indirect effect of the microbiome into the system. So direct effects I am not aware, but I know from experiments that certain medications on trying to control the glucose gets interfered from the microbiome. So that means that he is playing a role to affect this cycle. So your answer in one sentence, I do not know of a molecule that directly impacts the production of insulin. I have to go and study it. I don't know, but I know that the whole feedback signaling and the cycle which controls what we call homeostasis. That means that everything is put into right balance. Microbiome will influence the system, and therefore it can have an indirect effect on the whole metabolism. So when metabolism is affected, means including insulin has it has an indirect effect. So my answer is not complete because I do not know. So I think your question was very important. I need to go and understand it. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. That was the last question.
Yeah, very good.
And now is the time to express our gratitude. First
Sorry?
of all, no, sir, that was the last question. And now it's the time to express our gratitude.
All right. Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I extend my most sincere thanks to the Almighty for making today's event a resounding success. I extend a hearty thanks to Dr. Shaji Krishnan, sir, in helping us to understand about artificial intelligence in nutrition, diet, and disease prognosis. Once again, thank you, sir. My heartfelt thanks to our beloved chairman, Dr. B. Babu Manoharan, sir, for his consistent upkeep in conducting this webinar. My sincere thanks to our Managing Director, Mrs. B. Jessipriya ma'am, and our Director, Mr. Sashisekhar sir, and our Principal sir, Dr. V. Ravichandran, for their guidance in conducting this webinar. I also thank our Head of the Department, Dr. C. Gnanakausalya ma'am, Staff and Student Affairs, Dr. G. Rogini ma'am, Lab Affairs, and all other faculties for organizing this event successfully. Last but not the least, I thank all the active participants for your support. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Bharani. Oh, sorry, also Bharati. Right. Thanks. And thanks all the people who participated. Thank you very much. And thanks for St. Joseph College and for all the patrons and Dr. Rohini, who actually invited me, and also Balaji, my schoolmate. He remembered about me that I could talk about it. Thank you very much.